Hello everyone, greetings from L3RN Channel studio. We are very happy to present to you a new topic for you. Today we will talk about customer centricity and emotional intelligence. I am Teuta and will be hosting the show together with Trena.
Hello from me, and thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining our channel. We are welcoming two new guests who will talk on today's topic.
With us in the studio is Goran Mihajlovski, the head advisor from LEORON on behavioral training, consulting, and later via direct call will be joining Nicole Smart, who is an international corporate trainer.
They will share with us their experience while providing more information about customer centricity. Let us engage our first guest for today. Goran, we're pleased to welcome you in our show. Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Goran, welcome. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Goran, you've been working in LEORON as a consultant and soft skills trainer in the past 10 years. However, you have been delivering the customer centricity training program. Why this topic?
Well, to be honest, it's mostly because I've been involved in this company, in our company, in LEORON, who has this customer centricity embedded in its core values, core corporate values. So for the last 10 years, I've been witnessing how a customer centricity approach, a customer centricity culture can actually impact an organization and its employees. It can have a tremendous impact on every area of business. So it's not just favorable to the customer. So I decided to kind of pass on that message to whoever is not familiar with the importance of being a customer-centric organization. So did you know that employees in a customer-centric organization are far more happy to be working there and to continue working there? I think there was this research, not sure about the percentage, but it was around 80 to 90% of the people that work in a customer-centric organization are more happy and glad to be staying and working there.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the employees that are working in not that customer-centric cultures, which is only 20%. So that I believe itself is a measurable way how that can impact a business.
Right, but what is actually customer centricity and what does it mean to be customer-centric?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a legit question, I would say. Customer centricity or customer-centric, I mean, we use it in a sense that we put the customer in the center. We put the customer as the focal point of our business. So being customer-centric or anthropocentric or egocentric, it's practically common language. But everything evolves around how do we operate and what we do around the customer and how we make that our customers have seamless experiences. So that's one of the things. It also depends how we define the customer. Yes. First of all, is it only the existing customer? Is it the potential customers? Are the other stakeholders also customers, internal customers, so on and so forth? But what it all comes down to, and to answer your question in a more direct way, a definition of a customer centricity, which I'm prone to use, is that customer centricity is a way of doing business that fosters positive customer experiences throughout the whole customer journey. What it actually means, it means that every person at every level, every function of the organization, of a customer-centric organization, has the following question top of mind. How will the decision I am about to make affect our overall customer experience? So I'm talking about every person, regardless of whether they are in direct contact with the customer or not. So everyone is on board there. It's mostly about a culture, building a culture which has this embedded as a core value in the corporate values.
Absolutely.
So
I would also include here the mission and the vision of a company, right? It should be part of it.
Exactly. I mean, many executives do just pay lip service, I would say, to that they're being customer-centric organization. I mean, you will never meet an executive or an organization that will say okay, we are not focusing on our customers, we are just
Exactly.
product or sales oriented, right? But the perception on the other side, the perception from the customer side is not actually that, because you can feel a genuine care of the customer. So to answer your question, yes, the trick here is to actually not look at customer centricity only as a concept, but also embrace it as a mission, which will be translated and turned into a promise that is turned into action, which are measurable in a measurable way, as well as providing clear goals and responsibilities for the employees and how to inspire that value within them. Yeah.
It's an amazing answer, actually.
Yeah,
Thank you
great
so much.
elaboration.
Thank you
Also
so
for
much
the viewers.
for elaborating this answer, Goran. Another thing that I would like to ask you, there are several types of business orientations: production, sales, product, and customer-centric orientation. Can you please define the customer-centric business orientation for us? In your experience as head advisor of behavior training and consulting, which orientation would you steer forward?
I mean, always, without a question, without doubt. Whenever in doubt, always choose customer centricity. Because by doing so, you are not, you see, there are product-oriented organizations and sales-driven organizations. But choosing to be customer-centric doesn't mean that you are sacrificing one thing for the other. On the opposite, by becoming a customer-centric organization with heavily embedded customer-centric culture means that you are just boosting the profits, the employee retention, the employee engagement and their motivation. Because as I said in the beginning, employees are more eager and more happy to stay and work within a company that is customer-centric. But the main difference here is the financial objective of the company. You asked me about the definition of the customer-centric business orientation. So product-oriented companies actually, they derive and they focus on optimizing value created by each product. Whereas customer-centric companies focus on optimizing value created by each customer.
Right.
And that makes all the difference. That's where the customer lifetime value comes in, where the customer experience, customer journey, customer service as well. So the full end-to-end picture. So you will never meet a customer-centric organization that thinks about customer centricity afterwards, or that it thinks about it as a result of their great or solid customer service.
Right.
So yes, customer-centric or customer centricity always. That's what I'm choosing.
Goran, there is also a great confusion deal about what is customer service and what is customer centricity. Can you highlight the differences between these two?
I will try to. I will try to at least. Yeah, there is people usually, I mean, people that are not involved, that are not that informed or aware, usually take those two things as synonyms. So to try to clarify, at least, customer service is what happens at the front lines. So it's the transaction between the one buying, paying for the product, and the one providing it, right? I mean, not to get me wrong, you gotta have that foundation. You gotta have customer service, first of all, a solid, decent customer service to start with in order to build up a customer-centric culture. That's why many organizations have these service standards for customer-facing staff and for frontliners. On the other hand, customer centricity takes into consideration the bigger picture. It doesn't begin or end only with the frontliners or the customer-facing staff. As I mentioned in the beginning, it means that everyone in the organization is on board. Everyone, every individual at every single level in every function operates under the assumption that whatever they do, whatever action they perform, or whatever decision they decide to go with, will potentially have an effect on the overall customer experience.
Yes.
And that, again, makes all the difference. So in order to clarify it a bit more, I hope the time will allow us, I might share, let's say this is a more pragmatic way of kind of do distinction between those two terms. It's actually a story I would like to tell you. Let's say roughly 7 or 8 years ago, while of course working at LEORON, I was appointed to be the project manager of one of the trainings that we held in Africa, in Ghana, in Accra actually. So I was traveling, it was a very long trip. I was traveling from Skopje to Istanbul and then eventually to Accra. I had a 15 hours layover in Istanbul, the whole trip more than 24 hours. So long story short, it was an exhausting trip. So I arrived at the hotel, at a 5-star hotel, where we do, of course, always deliver our training program. So it was in Accra. I arrived there, and the person, the receptionist, the frontliner, the customer-facing staff, of course, welcomes me. She's all pleasant and smiling, and it's a really good experience. They welcome me with a welcoming drink. I feel good, right? Me as a customer, I do feel appreciated. I do feel valued, even with those simple, but that's customer service, what I'm talking about. So, but she needs my passport in order to, of course, enter my details and to validate my reservation. And this process actually takes about 3 to 4 minutes, right? She needs this validation process, so she needs to manually enter the details. And really, she engages in a casual conversation with me. So, how was the flight? Are you exhausted? How was Istanbul? How do you find Accra? Because it was my first time there. And I'm really not up for a small talk at that point, right? I've been traveling for 24 hours. I just want to unload my luggage, put my feet up, whatever, right? But she's super nice. But my customer experience at that point is not good. Is not good at all. I mean, I don't feel that my customer experience is fulfilling my expectations. So what do you think? I mean, who was responsible for me not experiencing the expected customer experience?
I think she did great, Goran.
Okay.
I do think the same, because it was her job to be kind to you. That's...
Well, yeah, you both have a point. However, this is the major difference between customer service and customer centricity, to answer your question. She did a great customer service. However, the IT guy in the back office that created the software didn't have the transaction time in mind. So he wasn't customer centric. So she wasn't able to be customer centric as well. Hence, my overall negative customer experience. So what it means that the IT guy wasn't on board with the full customer-centric culture. And that is the main difference. You see that there was a great customer service, but the organization wasn't customer-centric enough to take into consideration each and every one of the actions that every employee has at any function.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting. Sorry. Thanks
Goran,
for sharing that.
If the organizational aim is to adopt the customer-centric approach, the first step towards this aim is to apply the customer-centric mindset within the organization. Our question for you would be, how to apply customer-centric mindset? What is the best method to do so?
Yeah, that's a great point, because customer centricity is all about mindset and culture, right? But in order to apply something, first you need to lay out the foundation for it, right? As we have at LEORON. You need to incorporate those values, if you haven't had them so far, so to adapt new values and to lay out a new mission within the company so that you can, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a cultural transformation thing. So in order to apply the mindset, you need several things. First of all, to operationalize empathy. I mean, empathy is this big buzzword that sounds smart and everybody is using, but rarely companies and executives do really understand what it means, much less practice it. Essentially, customer empathy is the ability to understand customers' emotional needs the reasons behind them, and to act appropriately, to respond appropriately, of course. Because customers, at the end of the day, it's human behavior. They want to be seen as a whole, right? They want their needs to be heard. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in, which I believe our next guest, Nicole, will speak more about.
Absolutely.
So this is one of the ways. Another way, which I cannot stress enough, is that we put the customer at the heart of every decision, but not just speak about great customer service or customer experience, but actually put everything that we build, policies, frameworks, system designs, into marketing, into every aspect of the business. We put really genuinely customer first. So not to treat it as a means to an end, but rather as an end itself. Because the profit will come and it will be increased if it's a genuine customer service culture. So what I'm saying, we need to look beyond simple customer focus, right? We need to look beyond a simple customer transaction, one transaction. We are speaking about the full, bigger picture, which has customer lifetime value in consideration. So it's about changing the culture, but as I said, it's not happening overnight, although when you engage in it and when you do succeed, hopefully to, of course, to do that, it has the most and the longest business results and business values.
I see.
Okay, Goran, I wanted to actually ask you about a term that might be unknown for us. CLV, Customer Lifetime Value. Can you explain this term for us a little bit in short words?
Of course. I mean, I've spoken about this. I've incorporated it in the answers of my questions so far. But to kind of clarify it more a little bit, customer lifetime value. What it means? It means when you ask yourself a question, what is the total revenue potential if this customer is to buy from us their entire lifetime? So let me give you an example. You have a customer that goes at a nearby grocery store. He's satisfied with the friendly service, with the fast checkouts, and with the quality of the food. And he spends, let's say weekly, he spends there $100, right? And he continues doing so for the next, let's say, 20 years. So for the next 20 years in his lifetime, his potential revenue that he can bring to the company is roughly around $100,000, right? Another example, this customer gets disappointed with the quality of the fruit selection or whatever, right? And he decides to go to a different grocery store, which is 3 blocks away. Not that near, but he will sacrifice that for a better customer experience, right?
Yes.
So what this company has done now, they haven't just, this groceries, the first one, they haven't just lost $100 that week. They've lost the lion's share of potential $100,000 if they kept the customer. So the idea with the customer lifetime value is that you don't look at a customer as a single transaction or as a single good or great customer experience, but as a potential lifetime of great customer experiences so that you can, of course, retain the customers. I mean, this is where all the retention, the loyalty comes in, most of the advocacy. So it's the full picture, right? So that is the customer lifetime value, and we come down to this essential truth, which goes: never lose a customer for reasons that are under your control.
Under your control, correct.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Goran, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Yes.
And now we are going to connect to Nicole and welcome her in our show. Nicole, hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today.
Indeed, the same as with us. Nicole, I have a question for you as well. As I mentioned in the beginning, with you, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. Nicole, psychology today defines emotional intelligence as the ability to manage not only your own emotions, but also the emotions of others. Can you please explain how can emotional intelligence be used in the workplace to support the customer-centric approach?
Brilliant question. So let's take a look at what emotional intelligence is, or emotional quotient, as per Dr. Daniel Goleman. So you're looking at the 4 quadrants, and that's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Now, these 4 quadrants work independently, but they also work concurrently. So as we as individuals are evolving, becoming aware of our behavior, our thought patterns, our reactions, how it's impacting our team members, becoming socially aware is critically important to start to understand the people we're working with. So within the nucleus of our workspace, the internal customer, being the employees, being us, right? Very important for us to have a purpose, team cohesiveness, a sense of belonging, a sense of the why factor, what is driving an employee's engagement. And as Goran said, customer centricity is all about every member of the organization is passionate or committed to their job function or their core unit. And that has a direct and indirect impact on the actual customer itself. So the outcome of the sale or the outcome of the service or whatever the case might be. So that customer centricity is at a primary level built in our emotional framework. And I just want to touch on EQ, or emotional intelligence. Many people often confuse it with crazy feelings, emotions. Not at all. Emotional intelligence is about leadership, essentially. It's about the sense of self-leadership. So every person in an organization, regardless of title or authority, is a leader, right? Yeah. We're driving our thoughts, our actions, our motivation, our engagement, our decisions. If we're in a conflict situation in the workplace environment, how do we choose to react? How do we choose to overcome that or avoid that? Are we self-aware of our body language, the way we're communicating effectively? And Goran also spoke of perception. Are we perceiving a situation to be accurate? Are we being perceived accurately? So all of these come into play to make up what we call emotional elasticity, our ability to expand, adapt, and evolve our emotional and psychological, if you like, framework. And that's the favorite word now in the workplace environment is agility. So it heavily impacts the people-centric approach and obviously the customer experience at the end of the day.
Great elaboration. Thank you, Nicole.
Nicole, with your extensive experience and detailed understanding of the corporate arena, have you ever witnessed companies failing or struggling to maintain good customer relations even though they hire technically prepared employees and leaders with high IQ?
Good question. And the answer is unfortunately yes. We see this all the time because depending on the industry, which makes a big difference in the answer. However, regardless of whether it's a technical industry or not, at the end of the day, as long as we're dealing with another human being, we're dealing with energy in motion, emotion. And so we can be technically proficient, which is a tick and a necessity. But how are we engaging the people in our environment? How are we communicating effectively? What does communication mean? And so on and so forth. So emotional intelligence plays a huge role in the overall experience of the organization and in the ever-changing environment. And so as an executive coach and a corporate trainer, we work with organizations to really stimulate the team cohesiveness, because that's where all the action happens, regardless of, like I say, the technical proficiency. And as Dr. Goleman often, he in fact said that, quote unquote, that essentially we can be all equal on paper. So let's take a look at a resume. We've got high grades, we've gone through university, we are now degreed in a technical field, for example. Now we're all entering the workplace. So essentially we equal on paper, but what's going to be the distinguishing factor to make an employee a leader, navigate up the corporate ladder, think laterally, become a problem solver, a decision maker, creative thinker, know when to speak, know when not to speak, how to engage our clientele or our stakeholders, how to respond in a crisis situation, how to respond in an internal crisis situation, and that all comes back down to emotional intelligence.
But seeing the current situation objectively, would you say that employees nowadays give advantage to IQ or EQ when welcoming new hires? And how does that impact business in general?
Well, again, depending on the environment and obviously the job spec, but we see it more and more often that employers are looking for employees who are adaptable, who are agile, who can respond in different situations. I mean, let's be honest, when we called into organizations, we are essentially, well, I am in my scope, I'm training or facilitating or coaching or up-leveling critical business skills, hashtag otherwise known as soft skills, because these are the interpersonal skills, the interpersonal ability. And as our competitors or the company's competitors are evolving and growing, we need a core employee unit that is able to be attuned to the macro environment, be able to articulate that internally. I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, there is a conflict happening within a team. Mm-hmm. That conflict is consuming the team's energy. Therefore, the team have a very limited surplus energy to actually, put into a customer-centric approach because they're sapped from a toxic work environment or toxic work culture. These things don't only impact just the employee motivation and engagement, they directly impact employee performance and therefore ultimately not leading to achieving to the vision, mission, and core values of the organization, which in turn, of course, affects the end result being our customer. So we're seeing a drive for more and more, to answer your question, emotionally intelligent employees, so to speak.
Many companies in the past felt that they had to constantly monitor their employees to ensure client satisfaction. Do you think that the fact that many companies had to switch to remote work increased awareness of the importance on raising employee EQ?
Without fail, 100% yes. In the last 2 years since the pandemic broke, the amount of programs that I've been hosting with EQ, emotional intelligence, as the spine, as the backbone to all the programs is astonishing. And why? Because let's be honest, there's many factors that impacted this concept. Many teams, well, most teams were in their silos. They had a functionality, there was continuity, consistency, they knew what to expect when they came to work. In many respects, and I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone and all, but in my experience, people that I've engaged with in organizations, they were comfortable. There was a plateau. It was great. So when the crisis happened, a couple of things happened. The managers actually had to demonstrate leadership. Right? So let's think about that. They're managers, some are effective managers, some are not necessarily effective managers. However, not all managers are leaders or demonstrate those competencies. So the crisis actually brought about a brilliant opportunity for managers to actually lead and rise to the occasion. But that required the manager leader to actually start to evolve, grow, and expand their elasticity and their ability to respond to change and crisis and start to really understand their employees better, really get into their mindset, really create a sense of awareness on what's driving the employees' engagement, fear, and so forth, given that they weren't in the same environment as well at the same time. Equivalently, the whole ethos was to get up, dress up, and deliver. And that was sort of the primary mission of employees to get up, dress up, and deliver from home and to create a team intercontinentally or a virtual team. And that required an enormous amount of emotional intelligence competencies. That's motivation, engagement, purpose, overcoming fear, the ability to express our emotions. Are we prepared to share with our team that we're confused, feeling detached? And in many respects, many team members did not know how to articulate that. So it required our team members to actually start to read into that Why is this team member pulling away? Is it because of virtual? Are they fearful? Are they disengaged? And on the other side of the coin, I saw, and just to add to the question, I've seen many success stories of employees who were quite stuck in a stagnant environment actually rise and become far more engaged and far more participative in the virtual space. And so, yes, emotional intelligence plays a massive role. Big factor of all of this was crisis, responding to crisis, and change management. Many people and executives that I've worked with globally fell into a quasi or a depression, or a state of depression, and feeling disengaged. And therein, just in that aspect, an enormous amount of internal self-reflection and had to be, taken into account. And that was happening concurrently. So in conclusion to the question, I like to think of this as the raising the wisdom of the collective. And then we have something what we call teamship intelligence. And that's when the team is starting to raise their intelligence collectively.
We definitely learned a lot from this episode with very important topics for us and also for our viewers. For that, Goran and Nicole, thank you very much for all the information that you shared, and thanks for being part of this show. It was a real pleasure to have you both here today.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was all for today's episode.
Until next time, stay tuned.